There's usually 5 or 6 different reasons why a person believes in reincarnation. Right? And besides there being just a religious dogma, I mean. Most of the reasons relate to personal experience, right, that people have had, where they felt like they were another person from another life. Does that make sense? So let's say there's here. This is me. Now I have going through my mind pictures of a different life, like maybe 300 years ago, let's say. A life when I might have been, who lived 300 years ago? Captain Cook? Okay, let's go for Captain Cook. Right, so let's say I have pictures going through my mind of a life lived 300 years ago and as Captain Cook. Later, when people watch this DVD around the world, they'll wonder who the hell Captain Cook was. He was a man who so-called discovered...
You could make it Captain Hook.
Captain Hook. Now, 300 years ago or so, Captain Cook died. And he became a spirit. He has a spirit body and a soul. And he's living in the spirit world. Right? And what happens is, because of the law of attraction, there's different things that he's going to be attracted to different people on earth about, right? And he will come to the person on earth to visit them for whatever reason. If the person, for example, is interested in discovering new things, Captain Cook might be attracted to him, right? Because that was he was interested. If the person was a captain of a ship, then he might attract Captain Cook to his life as well. There's all sorts of reasons why this man in the spirit world may be attracted to this person. This man still exists in the spirit world, is what I'm saying. He's not me, I'm not reincarnation of him, he's still there. And what happens is, when he is attracted to me, he gives me pictures, thoughts, and emotions of his life. And he is perfectly able to communicate with me in this manner, as I am with you. Just because you've got a spirit body, it makes no difference. You're still capable of communication. So this Captain Cook can come to me and he can give me pictures, thoughts and emotions about his life. Now, doesn't my belief really determine how I'm going to interpret that? Now, if I believe in reincarnation, I'm going to go down the track of thinking, wow, maybe I'm the reincarnation of Captain Cook. Right? Might not. But if I feel that actually the spirit's still in the spirit world, I can say, wow, Captain Cook's here to visit me. Let's have a chat with him. Now, if you're a medium and you take the second road of having a chat with this person, you'll find that they'll be able to tell you a lot more than what they've just told you through the pictures, thoughts and emotions they've given you. And so my suggestion to anybody who wants to experiment with this is to actually allow themselves to communicate to the person who's with them as if they're communicating to a person on earth, rather than just accepting that all those pictures and all those thoughts and all those experiences are my own. Because the truth is, they might not be your own. They might be a spirit in the spirit world who's just giving you those pictures and thoughts. And the truth is that many spirits want to do that. The reason why they want to do that are there's very many reasons. One reason is that Captain Cook, for example, sometimes killed quite a few different people, or his orders did, killed quite a few different people. Because of, when he went onto a native land and there was a bit of a war between that, and, before you know it, some of his people with him, the soldiers and so forth, killing others, and none of that's very well documented, of course, because we don't like to think about all those things in terms of our history. But the reality is that many people from the past were involved in murderous acts. And many people in the past were involved with many other acts that were not very moral. And that actually keeps them in the first sphere of the spirit world. Does that make sense? It keeps them in the first sphere. If I can just continue in my explanation first. It keeps them in the first sphere. Now, in that first sphere place, they're often going to be locked up in that place until they learn to work through their morals and emotions. Now, Now imagine you're a spirit. You're running around in the first sphere. When I say running around, it's like it's instantaneous, like movement. And you're in the first sphere, and then you're re-attracted to Earth quite a lot as well, right? Because that's where the life began. So you go back to Earth quite a lot. Now imagine for a moment that you can go along to a person who can talk to other spirits, and they're on the Earth. So you call them a medium or a psychic, right? But as a spirit, all I'm saying, wow, they can talk to me. They can hear me as well. What would you be tempted to do if you felt you weren't listened to in the spirit world very much? You'd be very tempted, wouldn't you, to go and talk to that person quite frequently. Now, if that person, let's say that person's me, and I'm getting talked to quite frequently about Captain Cook's life and everything else, and I have this belief in reincarnation, I'm automatically going to assume that that was one of my past lives. But I might not consider the alternatives. And the alternatives are quite a lot of alternatives. There's the alternative actually that Captain Cook is visiting me and telling me about his past life that he had on Earth. And I could actually ask him, if I was open communicating with spirits, I could ask him more about his life now in the spirit world, how he's finding it, all these other things. But because I think that I'm this person reincarnated, do I think to ask those questions? No, of course not. What I finish up doing is I just assume that this person has to be I'm the reincarnation of them, and I make a lot of then very big assumptions based on that one primary assumption, when in reality it could be something totally different and a lot more logical going on. Does that make sense? Now, imagine for a moment that I've got lots of these spirits around me, and the more mediumistic I am, sorry about the skirt, the more mediumistic I am, the more spirits I will have surrounding me wanting to talk to me at any one time. Now, if I believe in reincarnation, I'm going to then believe that I was that person at some time, I was that person in some time, I was that person at some time, and I can reflect many of the events. But one thing that's really important to notice with all of this is that many of the events are usually that I can reflect are either important events in their life or their death. And there's a reason for that. Because many of these spirits are in total confusion about their death. And they don't know what to do about that. They don't know what actions they should take, why they are, where they are, lots of different things. And I've talked to literally hundreds of thousands of spirits in those locations while I've been alive here on Earth, who have firstly come to me so thinking that they had to reincarnate before they could progress. So they actually believed they had to come back to Earth somehow before they can progress further. And I'm saying to them, no, you don't have to do that. These dimensions are all dimensions of love, and all you need to do is begin progressing in love, and you will get out of where you are and into a different state. That's all you need to do. And when they start doing that, the changes in them are quite rapid and very, very clear.
So as a soul, you can progress through the dimensions without...
You do not have to return to Earth.
Yeah.
You've got to design it that way. Yeah. And when you think about it, what is loving anyway? Is it loving for a person to return to Earth, not have a recollection of their previous life, but have a heap of karma to deal with about their previous life? Is that loving? Not really, is it? Would you do that to your child? Would you give your child a spank, like today, and then tomorrow give them a spank for the same thing, and a spank the next day for the same thing? If you think about it, that's really what's happening. Would you give them a spank for the same thing without telling them what it was about? Would you do that? Of course you wouldn't. You would design a system where the person can learn what it's about, what emotion is about. What God designed actually is the most loving possible system, and that is at any one time you can find out how harmonious with love you are or not. That's what God designed. Now, the reincarnation teachings actually say the opposite when you think about it. What they're saying is, you reincarnate to work through a previous life karma, but you don't know what the karma was. You don't know what the error was that you've got to work through. So how are you going to work through it if you don't know what it is? Is that fair? Surely you should be told right at the beginning, right? And this is where people invented the life review thing. The reason why they invented that, because they felt that it wasn't fair what the original teaching was. And the original teaching was actually quite simple. The original teaching was when I breathe my last breath, I then enter the next child. I then become the next child born. That was the original teaching in its really basic premise. And then reincarnation teachings have been modified since then, and modified to suit a lot of intellectual stuff. But in the end, they all come from this basic premise, and that is that I cannot grow without returning to Earth. And it's totally incorrect. The truth is I've seen many, many spirits grow from these locations to higher locations without ever coming to Earth. And in fact, the truth is also that I've seen many of these spirits locked up, connected to a person on Earth, believing they have to be there to progress, and actually harming themselves even further. I've seen people connected to a person on Earth for hundreds of years, one person after another person after another person for hundreds of years. And keeping themselves in the first dimensional space for hundreds and hundreds of years with that belief.
Now, how do you explain the discrepancies of birth? Like people born into fortunate circumstances, people born into circumstances of deprivation, all the inconsistencies on the planet that you've got different situations people you're born into. Because the theosophical understanding is that part of your karmic lot, from things you've done before, and also people who are born with disabilities. So how do you account for that if it's not?
Are all the previous generations' choices of man's free will being worked out?
Previous generations?
Yep. You are a product, right now, you are a product of the previous generation's choices.
It's politics, basically,
isn't it? Not just politics, religion, belief systems, emotions, everything. You are the product of that.
That's just another way of saying a generational curse. If it's something someone in your genealogy's done, resulted in you being the way you are.
That's correct, and that is dead right. There is this multi-generational, what you could classify as sin, and if I define sin as missing the mark of perfection, missing, the mark of love, is this multi-generational sin that gets passed down generation upon generation upon generation, because most of us are totally unwilling to deal with the emotional reasons why we're being unloving. And the emotional reasons why we're being unloving create all of our diseases, all of our problems. Every single one of the world's problems, right at this moment, is caused by a lack of love. Every single one of them. So when you ask me, why does a child born in Africa rather than here? Well, under God's situation, the way God created, being born in Africa and born in here, you'd have just as many blessings. The way man creates it is we've set up this terrible economical system that causes the destruction of poorer countries for the sake of the rich. And because of that terrible environmental system, now when one person gets born in Africa, they have a terribly hard time and may die by the time they're 5. In fact, 50 million of them do. Every year die by the time they're 5. And so why does that happen? Because we, collectively, choose to live out of harmony with love. That's what happens. No other reason. Because if we all collectively chose to live in harmony with love, we'd find there's enough food on the planet, there's enough wealth on the planet for every single person to survive.
So if that soul's coming into incarnation, does it know the environment it's coming into?
No, remember I said the soul does not know.
It doesn't know?
No, it's the parents who know.
Okay.
The parents are the ones who are alive on earth, and they're the ones who know, and they're the ones who attract that soul. See, the New Age viewpoint is that the little soul attracts the parents, right, chooses the parents. The truth that I've seen in my life is that actually the parents attract the little child in order to work through a lot of their unhealed emotion. And the parents are the ones who are making the conscious choice, even though when I say conscious, it's a soul-based choice.
So if a child's born with disabilities,
it's unhealed parental emotions based upon man's free will. Yes, always.
Unhealed parental emotions.
Yeah. So the key of healing any of these things, firstly, is understanding where they came from. The problem is that most of us go, AJ is now saying the parents are to blame. Isn't he being terrible? No, I'm just being truthful. And my emotional response to that might mean that I'm upset. That if I'm upset, then it's because of emotion inside of myself that I'm upset. The truth is, if I heal every emotion inside of myself before I have a child, my child will be born perfect, and everything that it does will be so easy for it to assimilate. It might not be at one with God, but it will certainly be perfect in natural love, and everything that happens to it will be perfect in itself, and its life will be quite blissful. But the truth is, because I have a whole group of unhealed emotions inside of me, and I go along and have a child now my child, through the law of attraction and through what's happening at the time of conception, so here's my soul, at the time of conception, the parents' and environment's emotions are being absorbed by that soul, right at the time that it's conceived. So now it's absorbing all of this stuff, all of this crap from the environment, if you like, that's unloving, is going into this soul. Plus there's some loving things going into it too, of course. It just depends what's in its environment, right? But all of these things are going into the soul of that child, and as a result of that, that child will pay the penalty of all of those emotions entering it at some point in its life. When I say pay the penalty, it's not the child to blame for it, but the child is paying the price of us not choosing to deal with our emotions and release them and get over them, so that our child can have a free life without those emotions.
And because it's unhealed within the family, it just gets passed on.
Exactly.
A child within that family decides that enough's enough and they're going to break the cycle.
Yeah, and look what happens when you try to break the cycle. All hell breaks loose, right? Yeah, that's what happens.